welcome to Unit 6, Session 6. This is the text-based assessment for Unit 6. So I'm going to walk you through everything in here and what we're going to be doing this week. So let's start with the session plan. This week is focused on the text-based assessment, and our text-based assessment this time is asking you, is America really a land of opportunity? Are there really economic opportunities? How significant are the economic opportunities that Americans have or have had over the last 50 years? So you could argue something like they've had significant economic opportunity, there have been no economic opportunities. There have been economic opportunities, but government regulation has held them back. There are lots of different options for what to argue here, but you're essentially thinking about money and jobs. How much opportunity have Americans had to have good paying jobs and money for their families, even money for owning a home, owning a car, luxuries, things along those lines. Okay, so here are the essential ideas we're going to take a look at this week. Really looking back at all of those text-based assessment skills that you have learned over the course of the year. How to look at a primary source, how to assess the author, the reliability of the source, and then use that source to make an argument. Okay, I know some of you have struggled with text-based assessments, so be sure you watch this video all the way through because I'm going to give you some pointers that I think will help. Because we've kind of jumped around a little bit chronologically all that much, and so your first step is going to be to watch a series of crash course videos to kind of refresh in your brain the order of what everything happened. But I want you to watch these crash course videos specifically looking for things that impacted the economy. Think about jobs and money because that's what you're going to be writing about in your text-based assessment. The sessions that we did on immigration and welfare reform and the Reagan Revolution, especially Reaganomics, are all related to what we're talking about in this session. So those are the kinds of things you're going to want to be thinking back on. We have a video about Ford and Carter and economic melees, meaning economic basically stagnation during that time period. Then we had the Reagan Revolution, the Bush and the end of the Cold War, the Clinton years, and Bush 43. Okay, you're going to watch these videos, jotting down anything about those time periods and the economy because it's going to help you with your text-based assessment. Okay, so let's actually look at the prompt for the text-based assessment. I split it up a little bit in this session to help you wrap your brain around better what I'm looking for. We have the Unit 6 text-based assessment, which is right here, based on the provided documents. I'll show you those documents in just a second, and our studies in this unit. To what degree is there economic opportunity in the United States? In other words, have Americans of the last 50 years had the opportunity to get ahead? All right, and that core question is, do Americans have money? Do they have jobs? Can the average person get ahead if they want to? So if they start out with nothing, is it possible for them to get ahead, even to get rich in America? And why is that? What evidence do we have about how our economy works and the opportunities that we have? Okay, there are a few sample thesis statements that you can use here. I'm trying to make this as straightforward as I can. These are possible arguments you could make. I'm more than happy if you want to take one of these and tweak it. Really think through this question. Are there economic opportunities for Americans? Now, remember in a text-based assessment, when I'm grading it, I'm looking for some very basic things. Did you make a clear argument in the first paragraph? And does that argument make sense based on the things we've studied and the sources that I gave you? Did you use the primary sources that I gave you as evidence? Did you use the history that we've learned as evidence in your argument? And is the writing readable? Basically, are there a few grammar errors? It's organized into clear paragraphs, etc. Okay, that's what I'm looking for when I'm grading. So that's really what you want to focus on when you're writing. Okay, so here's your prompt again. Throughout the 20th century, people have viewed the United States as a place of economic opportunity. These ideas have been impacted by events in their day-to-day lives, such as war, economic boom or bust, social justice issues, etc. The following documents represent differing points of view about economic opportunity in the United States. Based on the documents and our studies in this unit, to what degree is there economic opportunity in the United States? Okay, then we've got those sample thesis statements here. You have to use 3 of the 6 primary documents. In fact, I'm even going to make sure that I highlight that so that everybody remembers. There we go. to support your ideas, okay? So we have several different documents here. Document A is an excerpt from the Equal Pay Act of 1963. It's talking about why equal pay for men and women is important, okay? So we have the Declaration of Purpose here that talks about why they're passing this law to make sure that men and women's wages are equal, and the actual clause about not discriminating based on gender for a person's wages, how much they earn. Okay, so you want to think through that source. Think, okay, in what way does this show Americans have or have not had economic opportunity, or to what degree they've had economic opportunity, and could I use that as a source in my text-based assessment? Okay, then I have document B. Now, this is an excerpt from a speech that President Reagan gave in February of 1981. The economy was not looking good, and Reagan was looking to make some pretty major changes in the way our government functioned and how much taxes there were, etc. And so he does this speech. It's about a 20-minute speech in which he explains to Americans why he thought these changes were necessary. Now, remember that Reagan was called the great communicator, and so he communicates this speech in a very straightforward, clear, logical way. So I gave you an excerpt of the speech itself, this part right here, that you could use in your text-based assessment. You could say, you know, according to Ronald Reagan, use a quote from here, this is evidence that, and show how to explain it connects to your argument that Americans do have economic opportunity or they don't have economic opportunity. I would suggest watch this video right here, the YouTube video of the entire speech, because it's really going to help you understand the bigger argument that he's making, and it's going to make it easier to use this source. Okay? Then we have document C. This is a graph of why different scientists and engineers come to the United States. So immigrant scientists, they're from somewhere else. Why do they come to the United States? Okay, and it's a little hard to read, but the black section is family-related reasons. Then we have educational opportunities, job or economic opportunities, and scientific or professional, and infrastructure or other. Okay, and we have pre-1993, we have 1994 through 2003. So you can take a look at those, and it's the percent. So this is saying that 33% of scientists and engineers in 1994 to 2003 came to the United States. So 1/3 came to they came to the United States because of jobs and economic opportunities. Okay, interesting stats that you could use. I also threw in some data from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics about different elements of our economy. This is talking about the education that you can get and how much on average you would earn, or the median earnings that you would get. So, and this is also your unemployment rate on the left-hand side. So you can see less than a high school diploma. People with less than a high school diploma have about a 9% unemployment rate, and they make about $400 a week. Whereas people with a doctoral degree have about a 2% unemployment rate. Interesting that that's a little bit higher than a professional degree. But they make about $1,500 per week. Okay, interesting things you could throw in here about how education provides those opportunities. The fact that we have a free education up through the 12th grade, does that provide economic opportunities for people? Okay. These are unemployment rates, 1976 to 2012. So you can see a couple of big recessions in here in 2010 and 1982, which is approximately when President Reagan gave the speech that was one of your other documents there. All right, some interesting statistics you could use there. And this is the inflation rate. For those of you that haven't taken economics before, which I realize you don't take until you're a senior, inflation is just how much does my dollar buy? Okay, so you think about the nickel and dime stores where you used to actually be able to buy something for a nickel or a dime. Because of inflation, our nickel doesn't buy as much anymore, and so we have to have dollar stores, right? We renamed them. Used to be nickel and dime stores, now we call them dollar stores. So this is inflation. How much does a dollar buy in a given year, and how much is it going up per year? Okay. Then we have an excerpt from Carl Sandburg's poem, Chicago. Now this was written in 1916, so prior to the time period that you're talking about. So be careful with this particular poem. But it's talking about America being sort of the workforce of the world. And yes, we have corruption, and yes, we have tough workplaces sometimes, but wow, look at everything we're able to achieve because of the opportunities in the United States, okay? You can take a look at this, use some quotes from it in your article, or in your argument if you'd like. I have lyrics from Cats in the Cradle from 1974. You guys would recognize the song if you listen to it, talking about a father trying to get ahead and what that impact is on him and his relationship with his son. And then we have a cartoon from 2011. This is interesting. So savings is going down, our debt is going up, our jobs are going down, and American upward mobility is out of order. It's not possible, in other words, to move from the lower class to the upper class, is this particular cartoonist's opinion. So if that's your argument, this is a great piece of evidence for that. All right, so you're going to look through these documents and decide, you know, which three, and you can use more than that, which three do I feel like would best support the argument that I'm trying to make, okay, depending on what you pick. All right, so that's the text-based assessment. So that's the prompt. Our next step, we're gonna pick each other's brains about how to argue this. And so you're just gonna respond. To what degree is there economic opportunity in the United States? Throw out there what you think you might argue. It's not going to be your whole essay here. You don't have to refer to the documents because this is just a discussion. But throw it out there in a discussion. What do you think? And let people challenge your ideas. I think it's going to help make your writing a lot stronger in this session. Okay? Then I want you to take a closer look at these sources. Now, I've already walked you through the sources, so watching this video is a huge bonus in trying to figure out this text-based assessment. But I want you to look through these sources and think about, okay, who wrote this, and how might their own opinions have impacted what they said? When was the source written, and how might that time period that it was written impact what it's saying? Would this source, yes or no, help me prove my argument? And what quotes could I use from this source in my actual essay? So just take a closer look at each one of these and actually decide which three sources you want to use. I've put them down here embedded as from a Google Doc, but you can also follow this link right here and it'll open the full assessment in Google Docs. Okay, so that you have everything you need. Okay, then it's finally time to start writing. I'm looking for a 3 to 5 paragraph essay. Here are the requirements right here, 3 to 5 paragraphs long. You explain a clear argument in your very first paragraph about how much economic opportunity Americans have had in the last 50 years. You use 3 of the primary source documents provided as evidence. You have to use those documents as evidence. You can use additional evidence if you want to, but those for sure use as evidence. Uses information from Unit 6 as evidence in your argument. So I want those primary sources, but I also want the things that we studied in this session. Throw those in there as evidence to prove your point. And that it's written in correct English with very few grammar mistakes. And when you're ready, you're going to submit that to the Dropbox. I have the assessment embedded in here again. I have your rubric embedded in here, and a link to the assessment again, just to make sure that you don't miss it. That's where it is. Now, I will tell you, when I first started looking at this text-based assessment, the very first thing I did, and of course I'm looking around for my copy. Oh, here it is. I printed a copy of this assessment and I wrote notes all over it. That's a really good idea, okay? So print out the assessment, take some notes on it, and that's going to help you a lot in your writing as you're thinking about which sources to use, okay? So you submit it there, and then that's the end of the session. Yay! There's only one more session. You have new content, and that's our final project, which I mentioned earlier. Should take about 3 hours to do, due on the 20th, but can submit it through the 25th without a late penalty. And in that, you're going to get to be creative and think about what are the most important events from 1945 to the present. And that is the end of our session. Don't forget that I am here to help you. I'm more than happy to look at text-based assessments with you, give you some feedback before you submit your final, et cetera, because I really want to see how much you've grown in these final text-based assessments. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a great week. Thanks.